Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Ohio State Sport Management YouTube channel. Today's guest is class of 2012 graduate Lauren Graham, who is currently the Events and Volunteer Manager at Pelotonia. Thank you for joining us today, Lauren.
Of course.
Cool. First question we have for you today is, can you just give us a brief description of your career journey so far and what you do at Pelotonia on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so I really started the first 10 years or so of my career in college athletics and continuing on that path. So I did my undergrad at Miami University in Ohio, did a double major in sports studies and health studies, and a business minor as well. They didn't have a sport management degree per se at that time. They do now, but kind of created my own in that vein. Really didn't know what I wanted to do, so changed my major several times, but ended up getting an internship at Miami in game operations, which is the equivalent of event management at Ohio State, and just really fell in love with it. It appealed to everything that I love about planning and checklists and being organized and those kind of things. And it was something I didn't even know existed as a job before I started in college. So that was my first internship, and I really just fell in love with what I was doing. Did several other internships along the way. I worked in promotional events for the Reds, so more on the fan experience marketing side of things for the 2010 season. And then worked with the Crew kind of in the same capacity in a promotional events position for one season, and ended up coming to Ohio State for my grad degree right after Miami. So wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, wanted to continue gaining experience, so decided to come to Ohio State. Got really, really valuable experience in my year at Ohio State, both in rec sports with facility scheduling and event management and athletics. From there, still was I knew I wanted to do event management, didn't know what the next step was, so I took the leap and applied for the NCAA post-grad internship program, which turned out to be one of the best years of experience I could have ever hoped for. Was in Indy for a year, got to work a ton of different championships all the way from the Division III level, Division III cross country, up to a Division I Frozen Four. So got a really wide depth of experience and got to see a lot of different things. And when my year was up there, I really got very fortunate that there was a position open at Ohio State in event management. Was able to come back and spend about 6 years full-time in event management at Ohio State, working all kinds of athletic events. Recently, just about a year and a half ago, I guess, transitioned out of that. I was looking for a little more balance in my life, just as far as working hours. And knew I wanted to kind of go the nonprofit route. So I had been involved with Pelotonia for several years as a rider and pursued a position there. And that's where I am now, the event and volunteer manager. And for those of you who don't know, Pelotonia is a nonprofit here in Columbus that raises money for innovative cancer research at the James. So our premier event is a 3-day weekend of cycling and volunteerism. And we've raised over $200 million for cancer research in 12 years. So it's an awesome organization. I'm in charge of really a ton of the event logistics for Ride Weekend and for some of our smaller events that we host throughout the year, and as well as overseeing our volunteer program, which is about 3,000 people for Ride Weekend, and kind of overseeing operations for that as well.
Cool. Thanks for explaining a little bit about what Pelotonia is. I'm sure there are some people that aren't from Columbus or Ohio that had not heard of that before.
Yeah.
Cool. So the next question is, what do you enjoy most about your role at Pelotonia? And maybe expanding on that, what have you enjoyed most about your roles in athletics?
Yeah, so obviously they're very, very different in a lot of ways, but also very similar in a lot of ways. So the things that appealed to me about being in event management, I really still get to be involved with at Pelotonia. The nitty gritty of event details and really seeing something through from the very beginning stages of making an initial list of all the things that need to be involved to seeing the event really come to fruition. The thing that I've loved about both positions, both places I've been in my full-time career, was just the people. The people at Ohio State are all best in the business, the best of the best in every area, whether, event management or facility operations, really across the board, everybody is just amazing. And that's really something that I valued while I was at Ohio State and knew that was really important as I decided what the next step was going to be. And the Pelotonia community is just absolutely amazing. We have roughly, anywhere from 7,000 to 8,000 riders on a typical year. Obviously, we'll get to this year and how it's been very, very different. But typical year, we have 7,000 or 8,000 riders. Like I said, 3,000 volunteers, and our community is just so passionate about raising money for cancer research and really making a difference in specifically in cancer research, but obviously just being good people and making a difference in the world too. So our community is just amazing and makes every day worth working hard for.
That's awesome. It seems to be a theme with everyone I've interviewed this year is the people kind of make it what it is. And that's sort of
get a job where you like the people. Yes.
That's right. You're going to spend a lot of time with them.
Yeah.
Kind of on the flip side of that, aside from COVID times, obviously, what are some of the challenges that you face in your role?
Yeah, I think this is a big thing, a challenge that I really realized in moving from athletics to my current position at Pelotonia. And, at Ohio State and in every position I've ever had in sports, it's go, go, go. You might have 5 or 6 events in a single week. Whereas now, I'm working really year round to put on this premier 3-day huge event in August. And so the biggest challenge that I have now is figuring out how to balance that time. Obviously, there are things that need to be done 10 months out. There are things that need to be done 6 months out, but I'm not used to being able to have that foresight to be able to plan out that far and really figure out how to use that time effectively. So obviously, that's becoming less of a challenge as I adjust more to my position, but really, especially in that first year that I was at Pelotonia, I had to figure out how that process worked and how that, the event cycle worked when it was a year long and not 2 days.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a, when you have 3 months, that's probably a luxury in the athletics world to plan a championship or something like that. So when you have all year, I'm sure there's a lot of adjustments that need to be made just in your personal work habits and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Kind of switching gears here. You kind of no pun intended bicycle riding joke. Switching gears here.
That's good.
We are living in this time of COVID. You and I were talking before the call. We're all working from home a lot. How is and the nonprofit world has obviously been affected by that, as a lot of other industries have. Speaking of Pelotonia specifically, how have you guys been affected, and how did that affect your the ride you're supposed to have in August this year?
Yeah. As you all can imagine, we were not able to gather a community in person. So we, as most of you probably, again, can identify with, started working from home about March and really took that first probably month or so that we were at home to evaluate what was happening. And as anybody in events knows, things were changing every single day. And we, were just trying to keep up with the guidance and what was being canceled and what was being held and what the state was saying we were allowed to do and those kind of things. So we made the decision in May to move our event completely to an online platform, which I'm sure you've seen a lot of, 5Ks and road races. Everybody's kind of been going that route. But we wanted to be sure it was something a little different and not just sign up and ride on your own and here's your participation medal or whatever it might be. So we created a platform called My Pelotonia, which has been really cool to see and really successful. And it allows all of our participants to go on and set their own activity goals. So they could set a goal around riding their bike for a certain amount of miles or minutes or whatever it might be, but people have been super creative. So we've seen people who are running, people who are doing a certain number of volunteer hours, if in a typical year they've been a volunteer for Pelotonia. We've seen people doing certain amounts of burpees, or there was somebody who ran a route and stopped for donuts every 4 miles or whatever it was. Just really cool, creative stuff. And so it's been, it was obviously a huge pivot, and we were really sad to not be able to be together in August, but it also was a huge learning experience. And it was really cool to see, people who maybe wouldn't typically register because they don't want to get on a bike, be able to be a part of it this year. So we really pivoted our entire event. We typically have an opening ceremony, which is around 15,000 people downtown. Obviously that couldn't happen. So we produced a hour-long program that everybody could join in on YouTube or Facebook that kind of took the place of that and still allowed everybody to kind of feel everything that you feel during ride weekend, and, you know, share some of the stories of people who've been affected by the funds that have been raised, and still kind of gave us a centering point for everybody to celebrate that weekend like we would normally.
That's awesome that you're kind of able to create some of those connections that people look forward to, I'm sure, every year. And it's cool that you guys did an app that sounds like it can be used moving forward. Like, just because you might have the ride in person next year, that sounds like something that can still be used year round.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. You know, we talked about people and how important they are to you know, work with. But who are some of the people that have influenced you the most in your career, and how have they done that?
That's a great question too. As anybody who is in the athletics world or the sports world knows, it's, you know, you meet a ton of awesome people. I think the one person that I have to kind of point out, Kiana Smith was my mentor and supervisor at Miami when I was there. And so she was kind of the first person who exposed me to this whole crazy world of athletics, of jobs that I didn't even know existed. And she was someone who really just gives you experiences and trusts you from the bat, right off the bat. So she, you know, as a junior in college, she was saying, here's a softball game, go run it, figure it out. She was super supportive and helped us along the way with every little question or thing or insecurity we might have, but really gave us a lot of opportunity and a lot of responsibility that I don't think many people would have when we, you know, were just figuring things out as a class of interns. And she's someone who, you know, I still feel when I was trying to make the decision of whether I was going to leave Ohio State or not, I know I called her and she was the one who like talked me through it and helped me, you know, realize what the right decision was for me, and just someone who's been super supportive through my entire career.
Wow, that's awesome. Those are great people to have in your life.
Yeah, there's obviously tons more. There's people along the way that, you know, there's awesome people at Ohio State. I had awesome mentors at the NCAA, and tons of people along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. You worked at the NCAA or did the post grad there. You've done Ohio State, at Miami, and now at Pelotonia. Can you just tell us about some of the highlights of your career this far? Maybe some events you've done, or just any of the highlights that have come up.
Yeah, that's hard. It's hard to pick highlights. I think one of the, you know, there's obviously tons of cool events. I've worked a women's Final Four. I've worked a women's NCAA Division I volleyball championship, which was as a, you know, high school volleyball player, and that being my real favorite, my passion in high school. That was a really cool thing to be a part of. But I think one of the coolest things has been just seeing our interns along the years grow. And I mean, we have interns in full-time athletics positions all over the country now. And it's so cool to see them grow. Again, probably Kiana feels this way about a lot of us. Like, they came in, they had no idea what they were doing. And were really insecure about, you know, learning things and figuring them out. And to see them grow into these young professionals all over the country, I think has been one of the highlights for me. And that's something that is really, you know, it applies to when I was an intern too, in my cohorts. When I was part of a class of about 25 at the NCAA. And again, all over the country doing all kinds of really cool things. So it applies both to coworkers and to the interns that I've been fortunate enough to mentor along the way as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. That says a lot that those are kind of some of the highlights, just the tree you've gotten to build so far in your career. So switching gears a little bit, why did you choose to come to Ohio State to obtain your master's degree?
Yeah. You know, Ohio State, obviously, I mean, there's the obvious reasons. It's huge. It's, you know, such a sports-centric place. There's so many opportunities. But I think in general, too, just the city of Columbus, you know, I came here and was able to do an internship with the crew before I even started my degree, that season before starting my degree. So I think just the reputation of not just the program, but the city, the athletic department, all of the different opportunities, you know, like I said, I had an internship, a position with rec sports and facility scheduling. Probably not something I ever would have explored otherwise, but it gave me this knowledge when I got into the athletics world of how that whole process works and how things are scheduled, and, you know, the rentable spaces, that whole component of it. That I wouldn't know otherwise. So I think just the breadth of experiences and opportunities that Ohio State offers, there wasn't a better option. It's just such an amazing place to be, as you know, as you all know,
absolutely.
with so many opportunities.
And you got to work with Andrea in that role, I'm assuming. So
I did,
that's
yes.
plus.
Love her.
Do you have a favorite memory from your time in the sport management program?
Yeah. I mean, we obviously spent a ton of time together, and
Sure.
you come in as this cohort of, I don't even remember, 15 or 20 of us. We were together all the time. But one thing that sticks out is we were fortunate enough to go to a conference at UNC. A group of probably 7 or 8 of us went down and road trip down, and just being able to participate in that conference, but also have that time together and meet students in similar positions to ourselves and similar programs to ours from all over the country was a really cool experience, and obviously a little different than the day-to-day going to classes and working on projects and that kind of stuff that allowed us to really grow a lot closer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. That's cool. You guys get to do that together.
Yeah.
The auction has been a popular answer to that question.
I figured as much.
What is your advice to current grad students in the program, just in general, and as knowing that they're going to grad school at a time where sports have been hurting a little bit, quite honestly, from COVID and with layoffs and things like that?
Yeah, it's hard. It's a hard place to be in right now. I don't think anybody takes that for granted, but I think the biggest thing is, I talked already about how many opportunities there are in Columbus. And while some of those, as far as actually volunteering at events and having in-person internships might not be available right now, there's still such a wealth of knowledge around Columbus. And really the cool thing right now is everybody's used to doing virtual meetings, and that's just the norm now. So not just Columbus either, making connections wherever, whether it's someplace that you want to move or want to be, or just in general, somebody that you find really intriguing. It's really, there's no barrier to that right now as far as where you are in the country or anything like that. So don't be afraid to reach out and use this time to make connections and, pick people's brains that you want to what you want your career to emulate that are already in the industry. I think that's, this time is really, really hard, and it might not be playing out the way that you want it to, or you thought it would, when you thought about this time after graduation, but there's still a lot of ways to really use it productively and make connections and, set yourself up so that as things start recovering and we start to get back to some sense of normalcy, whatever that might look like in the future, you kind of have set yourself up in a good way.
Yeah, that's awesome advice. I think people are just looking to connect with people right now too, because you're so used to just being in your home or whatever, and only
right. Talking to anyone feels so great.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. So my next question is, what role do you see organizations like Pelotonia and really athletic orgs in general playing in furthering the conversation and making real positive change when it comes to race and equality?
Yeah, I love this question just because I think it's such an important thing for all of us to be involved in. I don't think that anyone in any industry or any type of company can say that's not our job or not, that's not our responsibility. And it's so important for everybody to be having these discussions. Pelotonia, our executive staff has made it a real priority for us to have these conversations and creating space for just our staff. We're a small staff of 15, but just for the 15 of us to come together and have meaningful conversations about what's going on in the world and what our role is and how we can affect change. Just creating that space is so important for just your staff. And then two, just having the conversations of what that means on a larger scale. So internally, we have a working group that's really working through what some different goals will be for us as an organization in terms of diversity and inclusion, and whether that's, turning some of our support as far as vendors to Black-owned businesses, any kind of business owned by a person of color, whether that's what our staff and board makeup looks like. There's so many different avenues, and it's all small steps we can take, but I think it's important just to remember that those small steps, everybody has to take those small steps, and it's going to, add up to something bigger. So, it's going to be different for every organization and what that looks like, but just remembering that we're all part of it and we all have that responsibility, I think, is important.
Yeah, I love that message. That it's just a small, like you said, 15-person organization. Kind of starts there, right? Like that making those small changes are going to lead to the huge steps and huge changes eventually.
Yeah.
Cool. Switching from a pretty serious, important topic to a not so important topic, but some fun questions. What's your favorite food or restaurant in Columbus?
Oh, there's so many good ones. From my Ohio State days and like grad student intern days, Adriatico's Pizza was a staple at like every event I ever worked. I think I lived on it,
Still
which I
is.
haven't had it in a long time. I need to, revisit that. But I would say Adriatico's, Cap City's one of my favorites now.
Nice.
Easy Living, rest in peace, is no longer there, but it was a staple when it was an Ohio State staple when I was there for sure.
Yeah, it's still available. You just gotta cater.
You just got yeah.
Gotta know the right people, Lauren. We've talked a lot about the importance of people, and some of the people that have helped you professionally along the way. But who is your role model?
Yeah, that's a hard question too. Hit me with the hard ones. I am very fortunate. I'm the youngest of four girls, so I have three older sisters that I really look up to
Cool.
and have my whole life. They've always been role models for me. My parents have supported, they supported my 6 major changes in my undergrad degree. They've supported everything I've done along the way. So
Yeah.
they're obviously huge role models to me too. And now even more so in my role at Pelotonia, it's a personal thing for me. My mom has been going through cancer treatment for several years and actually is a patient at the James. So she is someone who really just inspires me every day. If something at work happens and I'm frustrated or, you have to look at the bigger picture and that is something that, I think about really every day. So she inspires me, my whole family. Like I said earlier too, there's been strong people, but specifically strong women in every role I've had.
Yeah.
And been very fortunate to have supervisors who have been strong women, really every place I've worked, who have inspired me too. So Kiana is the first of those, and every place I've been past there have been, I've been really fortunate in that regard as well.
That's awesome. I feel like the more I talk to people that work at nonprofits, the more that there is always a connection to something of those nonprofits. And I know you're not the only one at Pelotonia that's has family that are either patients or have been patients at the James. So that's awesome that you're able to kind of contribute in a way and feel and get connected like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who was your favorite sports team growing up as a kid?
The Buckeyes, of course. Yeah, I watched all the Buckeye games with my dad. Cool. Huge Buckeye fan growing up. So
awesome. Any favorite pro sports teams?
Not really. I mean, I watched everything that my dad watched. I was like the only one of my sisters that was really into sports. So I was like the son my dad never had.
Last chance.
So I'd watch the Reds, I'd watch the Bengals, still do.
Cool.
But really, the Buckeyes were my true love.
Nice. What's your all-time favorite sports memory, either as a fan or playing?
Ooh.
Or working, I guess.
There's a ton, but one of them that sticks out is the 2014 national championship, actually in January 2015. But myself and Erica Hoon and John Bugner decided maybe a week before the game that we were going to go. And it was less than 24 hours. We flew in, went straight to the stadium, went to the game, crashed at a hotel for 3 hours, hopped on a flight back because we had to be back to work, a men's basketball game the next day. Awesome. So it was like a super whirlwind. And it was literally, we were sitting in the Schottenstein Center working a game a week before it was happening. And we're like, should we just do it? We should just do it. And so we did. But it was such a memorable, 22 hours, whatever it was. That was a really good time with my coworkers.
That's funny. For 3 people that planning is very important. That's awesome that you guys took the
yeah, totally out of character for all of us. We don't do things on the fly like that. But it was awesome.
That's awesome. If you weren't working in events, volunteer, athletics, what would you be doing?
I always think that I would love to open a bakery or a cafe. It's especially in COVID times, my baking habit is out of control.
Same.
Out of control. So I always think I'd maybe, go down that path.
What's been your go-to baking item?
Ooh, I mean, a lot of like breads and muffins, banana bread, like every week.
Nice.
The easy stuff. I was super into like baking my own bread at the beginning, and now I'm like, it takes too much time. I'm over it. We're too far in now. Um, but yeah, trying out all kinds of new stuff. It's good.
Nice. I was hitting the
Yeah.
cinnamon rolls pretty hard when COVID started. I was
Oh
making them
yeah.
almost weekly, and that was a problem. Cool.
Uh,
Well, that was our last question, Lauren. I just wanted to say, on behalf of SMA, thank you so much for taking your time to do this interview, and thank you everyone for tuning in to another SMA YouTube channel episode. And we'll see you guys again soon.
Thanks, Joe.